Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Really pleased to have you with me, because there's something really important I'm going to try to explain to you today. So I titled my presentation today, Israel-Palestine, the African Antidote. Israel-Palestine, the African Antidote. Okay? So I present the continent as the antidote of what we have observed in Middle East recently, right? If you remember my lecture from last week, you will know that I'm part of those that call a cat and a dog, and I call Israel a colonial power, right? I hope we are all convinced and we all understand that the first issue of the conflict that we're observing, that we're trying to debate, is the issue of land, okay? I think it's really clear and important that we don't get divided and we don't get to lose the purpose. It's an issue on land, okay? And therefore, it's an issue that Africa has a long experience of, okay? Prior to colonialism, many African societies were able to share the land resources fairly. We had really little land issues, right? But then when colonialism was introduced, what did he do? He took the land of locals, indigenous people as they called it. So we're thinking of the Maasai maybe in east of Kenya, we're thinking of a population like the Luo. They took their land and they settled white settlers.
Yeah,
right? Great, thank you so much. They settled their own settlers, right? And did those settlers work on those farms? No. Who was working? The Africans. I heard it somewhere here, right? So it's very important we keep that in mind, because this is your collective experience. This is where we're starting from. Israel, Palestine, and African antidote. What do you see here? Do you see Jews? Yes.
I believe it's a combination of Africans, Jews, and Arabs.
You have someone smart here. This is exactly a Jewish woman, African woman, Arab woman, and in that picture we also have the Tuaregs, the Berber, the people of North Africa, right? What happened to them? What happened to them? They were Jewish people that considered themselves Arabs. Sometimes Tuaregs, sometimes Berber, but they were multiple identity. They used to live just before colonialism. Just before. They used to live in North Africa on the Ottoman Empire. Under the Ottoman Empire was not like the Muzungu empires. They were not centralized and highly violent. They were decentralized and led to a local elite to handle the reality of every day. So there were much more freedoms. And the reality of the Ottoman Empire comes from Turkey, North Africa, Palestine. All the societies were under one empire for a certain time. And all the societies have Jews, Arabs, Turkish people, Berber and Tuaregs, right? So it is important we understand. I think we are here today because Israel was attacked. Because Israel, the land that they call Israel, the state of Israel was attacked. If the very same army of Israel would have attacked Gaza first, we might not be here. As a matter of fact, they often enter the Gaza Strip, they often enter Cisjordania, they often enter Lebanon. But does that raise international media attention? No. It doesn't raise as much international media attention for the simple reason that when it comes to Judaism and Jewish people, we often think of them as in danger. There are people that think of themselves as in danger.
They're always victims of circumstances.
They are victims for real,
We always think they are victims of circumstances.
but there's this idea attached to them that they are victims, right? Have we all heard that? Some radicals say, no, they're not victims. They are the perpetrators. Some others says, no, we've been victims for so long. We have no one can tell us what we should be doing or not to protect ourselves. Because no one was here when we were getting killed by the Germans, by the Spanish, Americans before, all of these stories, right? There's only one place, only one single place in the entire world, only one continent that hosts Jews that were free and safe. Do you think it's Europe? Has Europe protected Jewish people? In France, where I come from, you know what the king did? Killed all of them. It's or you leave the country because you are not Catholic, it's or you're Catholic or you leave. They left. They went to Spain. And the king of Spain, intelligent like he was, welcomed them, take their money, and then said, now you are Jewish. You are going to leave this land. This is a land for Catholic people, not the land of the Jews. So where did they go? Next door, Portugal. The king did the same thing. He came, he welcomed them, he took all what they have, he made them work, and after 30 years, he said every Jewish people need to convert to Catholicism, to Christianity, but especially Catholicism at the time. Why? Because that's how the religious politics was played at that time. So it's important we understand that the Jewish were kicked out of Europe. Where did they go? Where did they find over heaven? Where did they find a safe place? They went on the other side of the Mediterranean. They went on the African continent. This is the only place where in the history of Jewish people, there never been attempt of massive killing, genocide, or treating them differently. They participated from 1492. They participated since 1942. Since 1942, they left Europe and settled in North Africa. And what happened when they settled in North Africa? They start to experience the cultural life of North African. They melt with people. They were Jewish, as I said. They were Arabs. They were Tuaregs. They were Berbers. But those societies were living with each other the exact same way. We are all from different tribes here, and yet we live in the same city, right? There's not a neighborhood for the Banyankole. There's not a neighborhood for the Luo. No, we're all living with each other, right? Okay, really important to understand that. They start moving to Africa, they live like Africans. They live with others, they didn't divide themselves, right? And then what happened? What do you think happened to that society that were living in a fair understanding? People here. What do you think happened to those people?
You don't know I wasn't there. What happened?
No, the answer is I don't know. They never taught me that at school because they never teach you African history at school. They teach you European history, American history. But if the Jews are in Africa, we don't know about that. But if they're in Germany, we know. If they're in America, we know. We learn it. Literally, they're learning from public school here. So, what happened to those people is an untold story. It's the story of colonialism. The French arrived in North Africa. They seized Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, right?
Which people?
The French.
Hey.
Yeah.
They said Algeria?
We colonized North Africa.
You people?
In 19th century. Yes.
You people?
Yes. So, we colonized North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, And the Italians took Libya, and Egypt was more or less free, more or less under British influence. But what we have to remember is that suddenly the Jewish become separated from the Arab society, the African society they were living in. The French engineer a system, and they said, now Jewish people went in North Africa, were living together, and suddenly colonialism happened. And what did happen when colonialism happened? The French said, no, you are Jewish. You are Arab. You are not the same. But they said, no, but me, my father is Jewish, my mother is Arab, I'm Arab Jewish. No, you have to be all one or the other. And guess what? If you say you're Jewish over Arabs, that means you're not Muslim. And what does that mean for the French? They give them the nationality. They become French. So French colonialists arrived in Algeria and they said Arabs should have no rights, French people, French settlers will have rights, Europeans will have rights, and Jewish people will have the same right that the French settlers, not like the indigenous Arab. Why? Because they needed to divide and rule. Divide and rule. Always. Everywhere. Divide and rule. Even for us, for Africans, we will fight each other from other people's ideas, and they will continue ruling. So, the story of the Jews outside of Palestine is the story of the Jews inside Africa, and the story of the Jews inside Africa was a story of people living a decent life, people growing in their cultures, exchanging cultures, and when colonialism arrived, it separated them. It separated them from the rest of the populations. And now, one person could only be Jewish or Arab, not the two. But before that, they could be both, right? Okay. So then what happened to them? They suddenly separate from the rest of the population due to colonial engineering. With that colonial engineering, what will happen is they push Jewish identity and say, no, you guys are like white people. You're not like Arabs. You are like white people, we're giving you the nationality. And what happened from this fact? It happened that at the moment of independence, what happened to those people? They were Jewish, Arabs. Now someone in Paris tells them, no, but you're also French. So then what happened to them? What happened to them at the moment of independence? Did they stay in Algeria? Did they stay in Morocco? What do you think? They have to move away. The same way the British move away of East Africa. They move away of Uganda, right? They had to move away. But where did they go? Where could they go? They were from here.
That is the territory now.
They were from North Africa. They were Africans like anyone else. But the French have told them, you're not. Because you're not Arab, you're not Muslim, so you have to be something else. And so slowly but surely you have this political system that decide to divide people, to rule them. That decide that the Jews will have Jewish neighborhoods, that the Arabs will have Arab neighborhoods, that the French will have French neighborhoods, and that everyone will live separate from each other. And now the Jews become only Jews. When before they could be Jews in the morning and in the afternoon because they're taking the tea or something, they would think of themselves as Arabs. The same way we can think of ourselves in our ethnic terms, maybe Banyankole, but also Ugandan, but also East African.
Yes.
All of you are all of that, right? But at colonial time, if you were Jews in Africa, you would have to choose one, and only one.
Yeah.
And that was the trap.
Either to be an African?
What?
Either to be an African or a Jew?
An Arab, indigenous, no right, considered like bad, or a Jewish person that will have the French nationality and therefore will have the same right as the settlers. So there's that separation that happened. That separation happened through history. But it's really important to understand that that separation came with colonialism. There was no separation like this before. And maybe we should think about it in an Ugandan perspective as what was it before? And what colonialism tried to push us to do, right? We have seen that in Rwanda. Hutu and Tutsi fight after colonialism, not before. And now in Algeria, those people end up having to leave Algeria, they end up to leave North Africa in order to go to the rest of the world and Israel in particular, right? But remember the movement. The movement was what? They were safe in Africa for 2,000 years. Then the settlers arrived, and the settlers disorganized the society. And the settlers separate them. They do what we call colonial technology, separating people from each other, separating entire family. The same way they have separated Congo and Uganda with one border that doesn't exist, or with another border between Sudan and Uganda that doesn't really exist.
Sudan and South Sudan.
Or Sudan and South Sudan, or Kenya and Uganda, right? So they separate. And I think that's really important we understand this, because a lot of people do not know this. A lot of people simply do not know that there were Jewish people in North Africa.
Sephardi in North Africa.
They were called the Sephardi. In Ethiopia, how was they called? Do you know the name of the Ethiopian Jews? They were named the Falasha. And slowly but surely, Israel will emerge. Now let's go on the story of Israel. So the Jews, more or less in the same time that people created Pan-Africanism, the Jews create an ideology,
Zionism and Jewish modernity.
that is called Zionism. Which some of us know about Zionism, isn't it? Because there's two definitions of Zionism. The first one is this one. The second one is coming out of Zionist churches that are African Christian churches in Southern Africa. In West Africa, they don't call themselves Zion Church too much. But I know that here and in Southern Africa, they do. Us, we're going to focus on the first definition. That's why I wanted to separate the two. The first definition comes from this man. A Zionist that believes that Jewish people will not be saved until they are in Israel. And so this man decided that in 1896, in his pamphlet, Der Jugendstod, I don't know how to pronounce this, he decided, as the founders of the modern Zionist movement, that Jewish should settle in Israel. Why? Because in Israel they can develop a state just for themselves. Not for Arabs that were there, not for blacks, not for Europeans, no. Only for Jewish people.
For themselves.
Wherever they come from.
For themselves.
For themselves. And people told them, but there's people living there. Right?
Mm.
You know how they told them?
No?
They said the bride is beautiful, but already married. Understand? What it means was that there were no place to settle as Jewish settlers in Palestine. Yet, they decided to continue. And for 40 years, they tried to send Jewish people from France, from America, from Turkey, from all around the world, really. And they tried to send them. And for 40 years, it fails. It fails, it fails, and it fails. It's important that we understand that having a state, it's a modern idea. At the exact same time, there's Pan-Africans on the other side of the ocean, Blyden in Trinidad and Tobago, for instance. There are Pan-Africans on the other side of the continent that start to realize that black people will never be free until they have a state that protects them.
Yeah.
50 years after, every freedom fighters from here, from Kenya, from South Africa, from Senegal will understand that the only way to be safe as an African is to have a state that protects you.
Yeah.
So this Jewish modernity is not something decorrelated from the rest of the movement. But yet we don't have a Pan-African state. We don't. But they do have a Zionist state. So, Zionism states that in order to be safe, the Jews have to go to Israel. But in Israel, what we have is, we have a great society that has already connection all around the world. And that society has developed a lot of technology. Like for instance, do you know, at the beginning of 20th century, before the settlement of Israel, you could go from Gaza, Jerusalem, to Africa, Cairo and Libya, by train. It was connected. But when you listen to the Zionists, they tell you this is a land with no one. This is a land with no culture. This is a land with no civilization. Does that ring a bell? That's what they used to say when Europeans came to Africa. They would say there were no civilization, there were no people here, we just took the land and
That they brought civilization here.
But yet, we all know it was fake news. It was not true. But Palestine was a thriving province of Greater Syria and the Ottoman Empire from 20th century. It suggested that its cities had developed trade. Its commercial sector and growing infrastructure were growing. There were culture there. They will tell you they were not, but they were. There were people living there. There were people living in good intelligence with each other in different identity. But suddenly, Al-Nakba happened. There are Palestinians that are chased out of their home in 1948. What happened is the creation of Israel was a violent process. Zionists knew that in order to have a viable Israeli state, in order to have a state for all Jewish people, they need to take out Palestinians. And how did they do it? How did you take out the entire population? 1 million people. Take them out of their own land. How do you do this? How do I take everyone out of Kampala in 6 months? Now, the creation of Israel was a violent process, and they forced expulsion of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. So Palestine was under British colonialism, and the British were favoring the Jews. So when a Jewish person will arrive in Palestine, rather than just being a Palestinian citizen, he would have guaranteed special rights, and not especially the right of using land. Right? So what would happen is that they will create what they call the kibbutz, which are farms, and they will take the farm from Palestinians, kick them out by military operations, and organize the farm. And then they will say, look, we are doing so much better. But they were no one.
We are doing better than you.
We are doing better than you. That's what they will say.
Yeah.
But there's no one there before. They say, we are doing better than you because you were not doing anything. They pretend there were no farm. They take your farm, they pretend there's no farm. They kick you out of your house, they enter your house, they sleep in your bed, they pretend there were no Palestinians here before. They sleep in your very own house. Those are not things I invent, those are like things that researchers have produced, right? So the equivalent of 1.9 million people were made refugees in 2 years. All of them were pushed out. 78% of historical Palestine was ethnically cleaned, destroyed. About 530 villages was destroyed. How many villages do you think you have in your district? A few, right? 530 villages destroyed, cities killed, people were killed, series of massacres, people were coming during the night, they used to kick families out, they used to take children, so now the parents have to go and find them. They used to bomb. I heard that interview, like, they would bomb your farm. So they would bomb certain village, people leave the village, and in the between they settle Jewish farmer, and they settle like army outside of the village so people cannot come back. This is the possessions, right? They totally dispossess.
This was happening during which years, sir?
1947, 1949.
Oh.
1947 to 1949. So slowly but surely.
So that's the history now.
Yeah. Slowly but surely, every single Palestinian will get kicked out of his village, will get kicked out of his house, and will have to settle somewhere. The majority of them will not stay in Palestine. They will go to Syria, Lebanon, Egypt. They will go to neighborhood countries, right? But now, the Israelis have took control of the land, they took control of the state, and they have super powerful donors. That I cannot explain how, I'm not sure. But I'm sure you guys know who was the richest man in 20th century. Have you heard about that? Mr. Rockefeller. Yeah, we know Rockefeller? Yeah. Rockefeller financed this type of operation. So a lot of people finance operations so Jewish people can settle in Palestine and claim it as their land. Why do they do that? Because we just finished the Second World War, and a lot of Jewish people have been killed in concentration camp. So it is very complicated at this point to refuse or to acknowledge any problems in the region, right? So a lot of this will come unnoticed. So Palestinians will go from here to Syria, Lebanon, some in Iraq, and a lot of them in Jordan, right? There were diverse populations. You can see here, you have in blue the Shiite, and in red the Sunnite. A lot of Middle East countries are both, right? The The same way we have Protestant and Christians, right? We have Protestant and Christians. Some of us, even if you are Ethiopian, we call ourselves Orthodox. Me, I call myself a Catholic. All of these are families, right? But they're not exactly saying the same thing. Catholics and Protestants are not exactly saying the same thing. So in that divisions of natural division of the Middle East, most states, much more powers have acknowledged and work with both, right? So the king of Arabia Saudi will work with both, the king of Iraq will work with both. Only one place in all Middle East will decide to settle a state on ethnic clan, Israel. Israel will be only the land of the Jews, not the land of the Muslims, not the land of the Iraqi or Syrians or Arameans. There will be only the land of the Jews. By settling as the land of the Jews, they will reorganize all Middle East. And they will say, this part here is like Europe, is like the US. It's not anymore Middle East. And that's what they're trying to do. Until today, Americans, I'm thinking of the Republicans, especially those that follow Donald Trump, believe that Israel should be bigger. Because Israel is the bridge from Europe to Middle East. Israel is the bridge for which Middle East will be reconquest. They speak of an Israel from what they call the Jordan to the Mediterranean. So the Jordan, all of this part. They want it to be recontrolled, right? So we have a geostrategic battles happening. There's a geostrategic battle happening right now for Palestinians. So looking at the history, what do we see? Just to synthesize, what we see is that Jewish people were safe in Africa. Then colonialism arrived, divided population, divided people, and now they can only have one identity. Only one identity, not two, not three, one identity. And that this identity now become exclusive of others. And within this identity, now everything become right to protect this identity. So you can protect, as if you are Israeli, normally you have the right, you in Israel, you have the right to protect yourself from others.
I want you now, in your conclusion, to draw us back. What is the cause of what is happening in Gaza, and who do we blame that for? The blame might not be looking for reparation, but to help the world understand. I think this is the whole gist of the matter. I want us to know what's the cause of this and who is responsible for it. And then finally, what do you think the world must focus on in as far as solving the problem is concerned? Mm-hmm. Because I know if we leave it to escalate, I have already started hearing some discussions. Some Palestinians should go to Egypt for safe custody. When they go there, will they come back to their place? When that with time, after 100 years, when the same thing that is happening now happened to Egypt, anyway, how will Egypt take it down? How will they accept? Because they already seen what is happening in their own land, where they allow the Israelis to come. So, in conclusion, the next 4 or 5 minutes, Mr. Thomas, make a conclusion in that context. I thank you.
In the context of Gaza, Gaza is a joke, right? We can just start with that.
Gaza is a joke.
It's a joke. That's not a country, right?
Did you say Gaza is a joke?
Gaza is a joke, yeah. I didn't say it. It's too small. 2 million people living in a street. That's way too small. You have less people living here. Less people living in whole here, that part. Or less people living in all this part that there is in Gaza. They concentrated every single Palestinian in Gaza as much as they can so they can control them. They control everything. As we said last time, it's an open jail, right? And in that open jail, they have the gut to say, go to the left of the jail because we're going to bomb the right. But then you go to the right.
Who is that one saying?
And then they say, no, we're going to bomb the left.
Who is that one saying? Who is that saying?
I think we all know.
Hey, first go on the left, we bomb the right.
Sahel. They call Sahel. So they said, all this zone, we're going to bomb it. Destroy. We're going to destroy this zone. So you guys all have to run here. But do they have oil? Do they have petrol?
Yes, they do.
No, they don't, because only Israelis control how much petrol come in. So they will stop selling you petrol, and then they will say, no, you have to run to the south.
Big petrol.
No, to avoid bombing. So they say, right now we're bombing this place. Right? So you're going to run to your car to go avoid the bombing.
For safe custody.
For safety. But now you realize there's no petrol in your car because the same people that bomb you give you petrol. You get stuck. You get stuck. So just to conclude, what I want to show you is simple. This is a colonial project. Jewish people were safe in Africa. African society have created the cultural dimension that allow everyone to live with each other. The same way today, you can teach me how Luo, Banyankole, or other ethnic groups can live with each other. But us in Europe, we do not know how to do that. It's a specificity. It's a specificity. What are we likely to see in the next few days, just to finish?
Yes.
We are likely to see a gigantic massacre of Palestinians. Right? Already there's more Palestinians that have died than Israeli citizens. But we're also likely to see Israeli soldiers of 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, really young, killing others and being traumatized. And whenever there's two victims here when there's a war, there's not only Palestinian victims. Israeli citizens that will become soldiers will be forced to go and kill the people of Palestine. There are 300,000 people recruited as we speak that never done a single war, that we go to war next week. Young people like us, right? So what is most likely to happen is that they will be attacked. No Arab powers will support them. Uganda will not send an army to protect them. Arabia Saudi neither. Liban neither. No one will protect those people. They have to protect themselves. And when they protect themselves, how will we call them?
Terrorists.
I'm not saying it. He said it.
That's what it is.
Because we have a logic, right? But we need to, just as my last point, we need to understand that the Hamas, the movement that organized the killing in Israel 2 weeks ago, right, is killing both Palestinian and Israeli. He says he serves the Palestinian cause, but he does not. To serve the Palestinian cause, you don't invite the Israeli army to attack Gaza. If you think of what they did, those guys, they thought as martyrs. They went to attack in Israel 2 days. They knew they can't win. They can't take Jerusalem, they can't take Tel Aviv, that will not happen. So they went directly, they attack, they provoke, and now they're watching for what? They're looking for Sahar, the Israeli army, to make mistake. So now we can all go and say, no, look at what they do to Palestinians. Look, they bomb hospitals, they kill kids, blah, 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 it's terrible, right? So their goal as they start this is to attack Israel so Israel can fight back and they can say they are victims of Israel. But really, are they? Or are the Palestinians themselves victims of that strategy? And I think that's where for us we need to think of peace. We need to think more entrenched. We need to be stronger in this because we need to understand that there's two victims here, both the Israeli and the soldiers, and the Israeli soldiers and the Palestinians. And I want to conclude with Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon was a post-colonial thinker, and he's the first thinker. He was from Algeria, and he's the first thinkers that say, when you have this type of war, when you have this type of colonialism, two people are victims. Two people are victims. The settler is victim. The settler is a victim because he dehumanized. So right now the soldiers, Israeli soldiers that entered the Gaza Strip will have to dehumanize Palestinians. They will have to think they're killing dogs or cats or animals because if they know they're killing humans, they will get crazy, right? So the Sahel dehumanized its own soldiers, and on the other side, the Palestinians hate each other, fight each other, and fight their culture. So the same way colonialism produced some effects on African society and African culture, the very same colonialism will produce the same effect in Palestine and Israel.
Thank you so much.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.